All right, Shavuot, say good morning. Let us begin. We'll begin by thanking our sponsors, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Yona and Shushie Ehrenfeld, for dedicating all the shiurim and drashos this month in memory of Yona's grandfather, Yosef and Shmuel Aron. Marc Karstaedt for dedicating the shiurim and drashos this month in memory of his mother, Chana Bat Shraggai. To thank our Week of Learning sponsors, the Kiwi family, in honor of all of the men who attended the Shiva Minyan for Mr. Kiwi, Ari and Shoshana Lerner, in honor of the Bar Mitzvah of their son Yosef Chaim, Meretz Hashem being celebrated B'Shal Tov Mislachos this coming Shabbos, and in commemoration of the Yartzeit of Rabbi Chaim Gewantman, the first Rav of the Shul, Morina Rav Chaim Friedel ben Rabbi Yitzchak Dov. We thank our Daf Yomi sponsors, Natan and Leah Berry, in commemoration of the Yartzeit of Leah's grandfather, Herman Binder, Avram Chaim ben Gedalio, and the Plonka family, in commemoration of the Yartzeit, it is incredible today, of the Ramah, Harav Moshe ben Yisrael Israelis, and Rashbi Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamos will have an aliyah, and the families in Nechama. Rabbi say, of course, it goes without saying that we dedicate our learning today as a schos for the aliyah of the neshamas. I think now they're counting 44 people who were killed in Meron, and the many who were injured. It's, there's an amazing Gemara Maseches Sukkah. I was thinking about this last night when I could not sleep, trying to comprehend. There's a Gemara in Sukkah on Daf Mem Hamid base. Listen to these words. Rabbi Yirmiyah Mishum Rashbi. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said as follows. He said, Yochol ani liftar es kol ha'olam kulo min adin miyom shenivresi ad atan. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, I, with my merit, I could absolve the entire world of din, of justice, of judgment, from miyom shenivresi, from the day that I was born until now. Ve'el mali Eliezer b'ni imi, and if my son Eliezer was with me, miyom shenivra ha'olam va'ad achshav, we would be able to absolve the world of din, of judgment, from the time the world was created up until now. And it was amazing to see, overwhelming to see. Here Rashbi is saying, it wasn't a statement of gaiva, it's not arrogance that Rashbi was saying that. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was like Rashbi, and the incredible and overwhelming tragedy that as precious Jews went to commemorate the Yartzeit at such a significant place, such a holy place, that's such a dramatic and traumatic loss of life. It's incredibly overwhelming. We know that when terrible things happen, Chazal tell us, Yifash feish b'masav. A person has to introspect. Who knows why tragedies happen, but for something so terrible to happen on such a day of simcha, right? This is the day when the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. This is the day when death stopped. And at the notion for Klal Yisrael now we have 44 new karbanos. 44 new karbanos. And amongst them they're saying children as well. We just hope that Emir Hashem, their neshama should have an aliyah. Those who need a refuah should have one, together with Kol Choli Yisrael. My colleague just gave me the name of someone in his grandson's class, Yosef Azriel Ben Chaya Michal. We just daven. We just have to daven. We have to daven that Emir Hashem, the schus of the Tana Eloki Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that he will welcome those neshamas into Gan Eden, that he will care for them, that just as Rabbi Akiva spent the first 33 days of the Omer comforting the families of his students, right? Remember, what did Rabbi Akiva do for the first 33 days of the Omer? He was going from Levaya to Levaya. He was going from Beis Avel to Beis Avel. And now the neshamas of Rabbi Akiva and Rashbi will have to go to 44 new Batei Avel. But hopefully, again, the Ribbon Shalom will bring nechama to these families. or bring nechama to Am Yisrael. And Amir Hashem, just make us yearn even more and even more intensely for the coming of Mashiach, for the removal of all this pain. And Amir Hashem, when we could finally reach a time where days of simcha will just be days of simcha. It's so hard to live in the world. This is what it means to live without Mashiach. To live without Mashiach means that even when you come to a Yom Tov, you're not sure what it's going to be, because you live in a world of such uncertainty. But that's why we need Mashiach so badly. You know that when a Lag BaOmer comes, when a Yom Tov comes, it's going to be pure and unadulterated simcha. So in the schus of these neshamas, we will redouble our learning, we'll redouble our tefillos, we'll redouble our chesed, we'll redouble our tzedakah. And the Mir Hashem in that schus, ensure an aliyah for their neshamas, and a nechama for their mishpachas, and Amir Hashem bring Mashiach a little bit closer. All right, I say, let us begin. Today's daf is Yotes, and we are going to begin Amir Hashem on Yud Ches Amud Beis 18b. We have an incredible Gemara ahead of us. You're going to need your Beis HaMikdash map. It's always a schus to pull out the Beis HaMikdash map. Amir Hashem. So we are picking up. Continuing in the education process of the Kohen Gadol. Masrua zikne bezin lezikne kahuna. So the Gemara discusses the idea that, remember again in the last Mishnah, the zikne bezin, the elders of the Bezdin, were educating the Kohen Gadol. So now again they gave him over to the zikne kahuna, to the elders of the kahuna. And what did the elders of the kahuna do? So the Gemara says, ve'alua beis avatinas. They brought him into the Avatinas chamber. Again, we'll discuss. Remember, again, we learned about the Avatinas family. We saw about them. We learned about them in Maseches Shkalim. Remember, again, Avatinas family, what did they do? Anyone remember? Ketores. Right, Ketores. They were in charge of the Ketores. So we're going to see now the Kohen Gadol is going to be educated in the realm of the Ketores. V'nifteru v'holchu lahem. And Abba say, so remember again, after the Ziknei Bezdin handed him over to the Ziknei Kahuna, took him to the Beis Avatinas to learn the Ketores. But before they took leave of the Kohen Gadol, they said as follows: Amr lahem ishi Kohen Gadol, anu shluchei Bezdin va'ato shlucheinu. Kohen Gadol, anu shluchei Bezdin, we are the emissaries or the agents of Bezdin. V'ato shluchenu, and you are our agent. So they said, we the Rabbanim, we're the agents of Bezdin, and you're our agent. V'ato shluchenu shlech Bezdin, mashbiin anu alecha. We adjure you, right? We make you take a shvuah. B'misha shachan shmo bebayis hazeh, shelo tishana davar mikol ma she'amarnu lecha. So also we're going to see, they make him take an oath. And what was the oath? The oath was that you should not change any part of the avodah. You should not change any part of the avodah. Therefore, we're going to see that what the concern was the potential that the Kohen Gadol was a tzeduki. Remember again, the tzedukim did not believe in Torah Shabbat. They did not believe in the verbal tradition. So because of that, we're going to see they did the avodah of the Ketores in a fundamentally... Can I draw just for a tissue? Thank you. They went ahead... Thank you. They went ahead and they did the Ketores, in a fundamentally different way. So what's amazing is the Ziknei Bezdin would make the Kohen Gadol take a shvur, would make him swear that he was not going to do anything different in the avodah than what they had told him. So what happened? So the Gemara says, Hu poreshu bocha. At this point, the Kohen Gadol would cry. Vehin parshenu bochin, and the Ziknei Bezdin, they would cry. Everybody would cry. The Gemara is going to discuss why they cried. Im huaya chacham doresh. Supposedly now the Gemara discusses what the Kohen... Remember, we already established in the last Mishnah that they would not let the Kohen Gadol sleep the night of Yom Kippur because they did not want to risk him having a seminal emission. So they kept him up. How do you keep the Kohen Gadol up the entire night of Yom Kippur? Im huaya chacham, if he was a Talmid Chacham, doresh. He would darshan. Right? He would give a shir. Ve'im lav, and if he wasn't such a Talmid Chacham or couldn't give a shir, Talmidei Chachamim darshan lefanav. Then people would teach him. Vim ragil likros korei, and if he knew how to, if he regularly read, as well say, it doesn't mean a novel, right? If he regularly read, Torah, Chumash, Nevi'im, so korei, then he reads Chumash, Ve'im lav, korei lefanov, and if not, they would read before him. Ubema korei lefanov, what would they read before him? So the Gemara says, Be'iyov, Ube'ezra, Ubedivrei hayamim. So we'll say, what would they read before him? Let's put it this way. It wasn't really selections from Chumash Vayikra, as much as we love Vayikra, right? It wasn't sections of Karbanos, because they had to read to him things that were going to keep him up at night. So Ezra, Divrei Hayamim, Yechezkel, Zechariah. So these are all the more esoteric parts. Like obviously, Eov is a story of profound suffering, but even that, the idea is things that'll captivate a person's attention. Zechariah ben Kavutol Omer, Pamim Harbe Karisi the fun of Bidaniel. This is incredible. Zechariah ben Kavutol said, many times I read before the Kohen Gadol, and I read before him in Sefer Daniel. Right, so we'll say, remember again, so Sefer Daniel is also very esoteric discussions of Nevuos concerning Mashiach, Geula. Good, that's the Gemara. So we'll say, top of your test. Tana. So we'll say, remember again, the first part of the Mishnah taught us that the Ziknei Beis Din handed over the Kohen Gadol to the Ziknei Kahuna, and the Ziknei Kahuna took him, the first step was Beis Avatinas, to go ahead and learn the Ketores. So Tana, Lelamdo Chafina, to teach them both the process of Chafina. Now remember again, the Ketores service was one of the most complicated in Yom Kippur, because remember what the Kohen Gadol had to do. He had to walk in, we're going to discuss this in great depth, not here, a little bit later on in the Masechta. He had to walk in holding two things. He had to walk in holding a fire pan, which essentially is like a small shovel with coals on it, and a ladle or a big spoon with ketores, with the incense. He walked in with both of them into the ketores. And in the ketores, he would have to go ahead and empty the ladle onto the fire pan, ultimately again, but without spilling any of the ketores. So we'll say, how do you get ketores out of a ladle, right? Remember, and you need two hands to catch the ketores, right? So you have to get the ketores from the ladle into two hands, and by the way, no one else is there. Right, so the Kohen Gadol has to do this all by himself. That's called the process of China. So also you can imagine it was an incredible skill to be able to maneuver that, and you can't spill any of the ketores. So that's why they would take him to the chamber of Avatinas to teach him what we call the avoda of Chafina. Rapapa Amar Shtei Lishkos Hayil Kohen Gadol. This is incredible, and here we're going to get into a little bit of the Yona, the Beis Hamikdash. The Kohen Gadol had two chambers in the Beis Hamikdash. Achos Lishkas Parhedron. One was called Lishkas Parhedron, which we learned about in the first Mishnah. Va'achos Lishkas Beis Avatinas. And one was the Lishkas Beis Avatinas, right? One ultimately, again, was the Avatinas chamber. So the Gemara is referring to both of these as the chambers of the Kohen Gadol. Achos B'tzafon va'achos B'daram. One was in the north, one was in the south. But ultimately, again, the Gemara, and one was in the north, one was in the south. This not because we learned. Vav Lishkos Hayu Ba'azar. Both say there were 6 chambers in the Azara. Gimel B'tzafon and Gimel B'daram. 3 in the north and 3 in the south. Shebedaram, the ones in the south, were Lishkas HaMelach, Lishkas HaParva, Lishkas HaMadichin. So both say, so just to show you what we're talking about over here. So if you use this picture of the Beis Hamikdash, Shabbos say, again, I don't want to give away the conclusion of this Gemara, but I do want to orient you. So remember again, we're now talking south in the Beis Hamikdash. So this is south. So just if you're looking on this image, we're looking now at chambers Tes Vav, Tes Zayin, and Yud Zayin. Right? So the bottom here, you can see it over here, bottom center. These are the 3 chambers we're discussing over here. So what are the 3 chambers? The Gemara says they were... Right? Shebedaram, Lishkas HaMelach, Lishkas HaParva, Lishkas HaMadichin. Okay, what were each of these chambers used for? Lishkas HaMelach, the chamber of salt. And I both say you could see over here, Lishkas HaMelach is Tes Vav on your sheet. Tes Vav. Lishkas HaMelach, Shesham HaYunos HaMelach LaKarban. And I both say, because that's where they would keep the salt for karbanos. Remember again, the halacha is, Al Kol Karboncha Takriv Melach. You have to put salt in every single carbon. You need an incredible amount of salt. So they would keep that again. I both say, so again, you see that's here. Tes Vav, Lishkas HaMelach. That's where they would keep the salt. Shem HaYunos HaMelach carbon. Lishkas HaParva. What happened? Lishkas HaParva. Shesham HaYumochin Oros Kachim. That's where they would salt the hides of karbanos. So we'll say Lishkas HaParva is Tes Zayin. Tes Zayin, right over here. Lishkas HaParva. That's where they would go ahead and salt the hides of karbanos. Next, The Gemara says, Lishkas haparva shama mochin oros kachim. V'al gaga haisa beis hatvila kohen gadol. And I will say, if you notice, by the way, this is box Yud Ches. You can see Yud Ches over here, which is in the middle, with a little circle on top of it, and it's colored in blue. That's a mikvah. That's a rooftop mikvah. Right? Some people have rooftop pools. Beis HaMikdash had a rooftop mikvah, and it was an infinity mikvah, by the way. Right? So he had a mikvah on the roof, and I will say again, that's where the Kohen Gadol used for the Tevilas on Yom Kippur. Good. Next. So the Gemara says, Lishkas Hamadichin, and the last one was Lishkas Hamadichin. I both say that's Yud Zayin. That's Yud Zayin. So the Gemara had Lishkas Hamadichin, Shema Yumadichin, Kirvei Kadshe Kadoshim. So I both say ultimately again, that's where they cleaned out the innards of the animals of Kadshe Kadoshim. Umisham Mesiba Ola Legag Beis HaParva. And there was also a staircase there that led to the Beis HaParva. Good. So I will say, which in Yud Zayin, I will say in Yud Zayin, which you can see is the Lishkas Hamadichin. So just to understand over here, Yud Zayin Lishkas Hamadichin. How would you access the rooftop mikvah? There was a staircase. The staircase was in Lishka Yud Zayin, what we call Lishkas Hamadichin. That's how you accessed the rooftop mikvah. So we'll say those are the southern chambers. Southern chambers in the Beis HaMikdash. Gimel Shevet Safin. There are 3 chambers in the north. Lishkas Ha'etz, Lishkas Hagola, Lishkas Hagozis. So we'll say 3 chambers. Let's go through each of them. Lishkas Ha'etz, the chamber of wood. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Shachachti Mahaisa Mishameshes. So it's interesting. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, I don't remember what it was used for, the Lishkas Ha'etz. Abba Shaul says, no, that was Lishkas Kohen Gadol Haisa. So we'll say, Lishkas Ha'etz is actually another name for the Lishkas Parhedron. So both say, so just to understand, the cluster we're looking at now is Yud Tes, Chaf, and Chaf Aleph. The 3 boxes on top, the 3 chambers on top over here. So we'll say, so the chamber we just described now was Lishkas Parhedron, is Chaf. It's also called Lishkas Ha'etz. That's what it's called. So the Gemara said, but that was Lishkas Kohen Gadol Haisa, Achorish Tehen, and that Lishkas Ha'etz, we'll say, Chaf, was behind the other 2. You can see Chaf is situated kind of to the side of Yutes, quote unquote, behind Yutes, and behind Chaf Aleph. So the Gemara says, V'gag shlashtan shava. That I will say, interestingly enough, as opposed to the 3 chambers, the cluster of chambers on the southern side, where they did not have equal roof lines, the chambers on the northern side, right, the Lishkas Ha'etz, the Lishkas Hagozis, and the Lishkas Hagola, which we'll discuss, all had an equal roof line. So the Gemara says, and what happened? The Gemara says, so Gag Shloshtan Shava, Lishkas Hagola. So we'll say, so far I have Lishkas Ha'etz. So just to understand, Lishkas Ha'etz is what we called before Lishkas Parhedron. Lishkas Parhedron, same thing. So next, Lishkas Hagola. What's the literally mean? The Lishkas Hagola means the chamber of the diaspora. What is that? Sham Haya Bar Hagola. Both say in that chamber was a very large water cistern. V'hagalga, V'hagalga Nasan Alav, there was a pulley system that was there. Misham Maspikin Mayim L'chal Azar. And I both say that was the water source for the entire Beis HaMikdash compound. Lishkas Hagozis. What happened? Lishkas Hagozis. Both say that is chamber Yud Tes. I want to tell you the exciting part about this. You know, often when we look at the Beis HaMikdash, so of course it's incredible, it's amazed, but to be honest, we don't know how to navigate. It is so important to learn how to navigate your way around the Beis HaMikdash. You don't want to get there when Mashiach shows up, right, and suddenly not know where to go. Again, this is assuming the Bayis Shlishi will have the same layout as the Bayis Sheni. You want to be able to walk into the Beis HaMikdash in Eretz Hashem. I mean, again, if you're a Yisrael like me, we're not really going anywhere, right, all that much. We're kind of staying right about here. This is the extent. But especially if you are a Kohen or a Levi, you have that schus. You want to know exactly where to go. You have to know your way around the Beis HaMikdash. This is the Iker. So this is very exciting because we often see these pictures, a lot of boxes. Okay, I could read the names, but now we're mamish going to know. By the time we finish Yoma, we're going to know explicitly the real layout of the Beis HaMikdash. So we'll say Lishkas Hagozis. This is chamber Yud Tes, the chamber of hewn stone. What is that? We'll say this is incredible. Sham Haya Sanhedrin Shal Yisrael Yosheves V'Danas HaKohanim. We'll say the Lishkas Hagozis, remember again, was the home of the Sanhedrin. Now the Sanhedrin, the high court of the land, performed many functions. But amongst their primary functions vis-a-vis the Beis Hamikdash was going ahead and adjudicating lineage. Or really, I should say, better wording is establishing lineage, right? If you were a Kohen, and you see, we'll say today, remember, you roll into shul, and the Gabbai asks you, Kohen Levi Yisrael, and you say, Kohen, and the Gabbai says, okay, right? That's it. In other words, there's no papers, please. There's no certification, and it's fine because it's an aliyah. And if you're not a Kohen and you're saying you are a Kohen, it's on you. It's on you, right? And you go up to Duch and you say you're a Kohen. Okay, it's on you. In the Beis Hamikdash, we do not allow Kohanim to do anything unless their lineage is certified. You have to be a certified Kohen. And to do that, we have to do a yichus check. Because we'll say we can't have people who are not certified doing the avoda, the same way that we can't have people who aren't certified partaking of karbanos. So one of the primary responsibilities of the Sanhedrin and the Lishkas HaGozis, vis-a-vis the Beis Hamikdash, is this checking of yichus. So we'll say, watch this is incredible. So the Gemara says, Shama Sanhedrin shal Yisrael Yoshevis v'danas HaKohanim. The Sanhedrin would sit there and they would judge. Umisha nimtza bo pasul, somebody who was found to be pasul, a psul in his lineage. Hayalove shchorim umisativ shchorim. But listen to this. He would wrap himself in black. V'yotze v'holichlo, and he would leave the Beis Hamikdash wrapped in black. So we'll say v'shalom nimtza bo psul, and someone who was found that there was no psul. Hayalove shlevanim, he would put on white. Umisativ levanim, and he would go ahead and wrap himself in white. V'nichnas umishamish im echav hakohanim, and he would go and serve with his brother in the Chana Bat Shraggai. So two things that are interesting about this. Number one, what it almost seems like a public shaming, right? The guy walks into the Sanhedrin for his lineage check. It's not his fault. We found something in your father and your grandfather and your grandmother, whatever it is. You wrap him in black, and you said it's such a public display. But so you begin to see how important yichus for the kahuna is. It actually was the goal of the Sanhedrin to actually make a public statement, because it is incredibly important to know, ultimately, again, who is Jewish and who is a Kohen and who is not. Who is a Kohen and who is not. And it matters on so many different levels. You think you're right, your neighbor's always been a Kohen. Sanhedrin goes out and vets his lineage. There's a problem. You've been giving him your truma for the last 20 years. You have to know that you can't give him your truma anymore. So if there was found to be a problem in the yichus, it was actually dealt with in a public way. So the other interesting observation here, I think, is as follows. If you notice the contrast, so it says, Misha nimtza bo psul, right? Someone who they found a psul in, right? A genealogical blemish. They would wrap him in black, he'd walk out in black. It's interesting. V'shalo nimtza bo psul. Someone who they did not find a psul in, ultimately, again, so say, I would have thought, what if it had said? Mishanim, so what should it say? Mishanim, so what? Kosher. So we'll say it's a good din in humility. It's a very good din in humility. It doesn't say Mishanim, so kosher. Because we'll say, at the end of the day, if we truly introspect, who amongst us could deem ourselves as a kosher? Right, as a kosher, as let alone glat. Right, who amongst could view themselves as kosher? Sometimes the best way to view yourself is, hopefully today, lo nimtza bo psul. Right, Baruch Hashem, hopefully today I didn't do anything disqualifying. It maintains a good sense of humility, because kashrus means you've arrived. Right, kosher means I'm here. We never arrive. We never ever arrive. We're always trying to become kosher, but the path to kashrus ultimately begins by lo nimtza bo psul, by making sure that I haven't done anything which is disqualifying today. So the Gemara goes weiter. Now the whole point of that is fascinating from this was that we see that the Kohen Gadol has a chamber on the north side. I gave it away a little bit. I even told myself I wouldn't do this. The Lishka, remember again, I told you, but you're going to forget it, which by the looks, many of you did already. And so I mentioned to you that the Lishkas Ha'etz was the Lishkas Parhedron. Remember again, the Gemara doesn't say that. The only chamber the Gemara identified over here, well, okay, let me see differently. Right now, what the Gemara just proved to us was that the Kohen Gadol has a chamber on the northern side. So the Gemara says, Achas B'daram, so now we know that the Kohen Gadol has a chamber on the northern side. He also has a chamber on the southern side. Achas B'daram, see the Gemara is kind of presupposing that we know that Lishkas Ha'etz is the Lishkas Parhedron. Now the Kohen Gadol has a chamber on the southern side. Achas B'daram Disnan. Shiva Sharm Hayu Bazar. This is incredible. There were 7 gates around the Beis Hamikdash. Gimel B'tzafon, 3 on the north. Gimel B'daram, 3 on the south. va'achas b'mizrach, and one ultimately by the east. I will say we're actually going to see there are more gates than that. There are actually more gates, but for now we're talking about these 7 primary gates. 3 in the east. Sorry, 3 in the north, 3 in the south, 1 on the east. Now let's go through them. Shebedarim. So I will say now you could follow along. Again, remember the south. Just your geographic orientation. South is the bottom of this image. So the 3 gates we're going to talk about over here are Shar Hadlaka, Sheni lo Shar HaKarban, Shlishi lo Shar HaMayim. So we'll say the 3 gates we're looking at over here are Mem Zayin, Mem Ches, Mem Tes, and Nun. I know that I just named 4 of them. I will say, but you begin to see, so that's what I'm saying, there are more gates over here. So if you notice again, Mem Zayin is not mentioned as the Shar Elyon, we'll come to that. Mem Ches is the Shar Hadlaka. Now, interestingly enough, Rashi over here says, I don't know what this gate was for. If you look at Rashi, he says, Sharad Laka, Shara Karban, Lo Yadati Lama Nikra Shmam Kach. I don't know why they're called that. Now, in fact, the Gemara is going to explain later on. It's interesting that Rashi says he doesn't know why it's called that. We're going to see later on about the Sharad Laka was the gate through which they would bring the wood, which is interesting. Consider the fact that where was the wood stored? Both said the wood was stored in box Yud. Right, that was the Lishkas Ha'itzim. So it is fascinating to see that they bring the wood almost in from, I guess, what we'll call like the most southwest gate. And they bring it all the way to the northeast corner. Okay, whatever. So the Gemara said, not whatever, I didn't mean it like that. But whatever the logic was, that's where they brought in the wood. Next, Rabosai that was Shar Laka. Next was Shar HaKarban. So Rabosai, you can see over here, Shar HaKarban is going to be, actually, we'll see where Shar HaKarban is. It's really what the Gemara is going to call Shar HaBechoros. That's Memtes on your sheet. And Shlishilo, Shar HaMayim. And Nun is Shar HaMayim. So we'll say, so it's really Memches, Memtes, and Yud. So Memches, Shar HaDlaka. Memtes, it's labeled over here Shar HaBechoros. Because it will say ultimately, again, that's where they would bring in the Bechar animals. But the Gemara here is calling it Shar HaKarban, right? The gate of the Karban. And number 3, Shar HaMayim. We'll say, now why was it called Shar HaMayim? Shar HaMayim is because that's where they brought in the water for Nisuch HaMayim on Sukkos. So incredible. So we'll say, so again, you see, I'll lose my place. So, right, we're talking about these 3 gates over here. Memches, Memtesnon. That's why I mentioned to you there are more gates. The Gemara is not talking about Shara Elyon or Mem Zayin right now, but these 3 gates. Good. So the Gemara says, what about the northern gates, the eastern gate? Shar Nikanor. So I will say, this is over here, just to throw you a little bit, we're talking about this gate. It's Chaf Gimel. You can see on the key, Shar Nikanor. Then I will say, if you notice on the picture over here, it's a little bit small, but if you notice again, Chaf Gimel, Shar Nikanor, we're going to see there was 1 major door, 1 very large door, and 2 small doors, 1 to the right and 1 to the left of the larger doors. So I will say there was only 1 gate in the east, called Shar Nikanor. So the Gemara says, Sheb Mizrach Shar Nikanor. Ushtei lishkos hayusham, achas b'yamino va'achas b'smolo. And I will say, when you went through Shar Nikanor, there were 2 small chambers, 1 to the right and 1 to the left. Achas lishkas Pinchas hamalabesh. 1 was the chamber of Pinchas, the one who clothed the Kohanim. Va'achas lishkas osei chavitin. And 1 was the chamber in which they made the chavitin. But remember again, the chavitin was the special mincha offered up by the Kohen Gadol. He offered it up every day, and we did this in Shkolim. But remember again, every Kohen would offer the chavitin at least once. When? On his first day, his day of inaugural service. So just to see, these are the 2 chambers. The chambers we're referring to over here are Chav Vav and Chav Hey. And you can see over here on the key, Chav Vav is Lishkas Osei Chavitin, and Chav Hey is Lishkas Pinchas HaMalabesh. So we'll say, see over here, you go through Shar Nikanor. Sorry, I don't know if this is helpful that I'm holding this up or not. But you go through Shar Nikanor in Chav Gimel, and again, if you go right, you get to Chav Hey, the Lishkas Chavitin. You go left, you get to the Lishka of Pinchas HaMalabesh. Incredible. So the Gemara says, V'shebet Safan, what about the gates in the north? So we'll say, now we're on the top over here. What about the gates on the north? Shar Nitzutz. So we'll say, first one was the Shar Nitzutz, which we'll say literally means the gate of the ray. The ray of sun. I will say, what was unique about this? This was Binyan Achsad Rahaya. This was actually a large structure Ve'aliyah binuya alo al gabov, and there was a large aliyah, there was a large upper story there as well. V'sham kohanim shomrim milamala uleviim milamata. And ultimately, again, the kohanim and the Leviim would stand guard on top of that particular structure. Now, both say, remember again, not literally not standing guard als security, but standing guard als kavod, right? The Gemara will discuss that there was like an honor guard, by the Beis Hamikdash, that the home of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the palace of the Ribbon Shalom, should never remain unguarded. So both say, so just so you see, right now in this picture, this is Mem Daled. Well, Mem Daled is the Aliyah. Mem Gimel is the gate, right? So both say, this is this structure over here, Shar HaNitzotz. So you can see over here, there's the gate, and then ultimately, again, the reason why it's a large square is ultimately, again, because it was a structure. The upper story of this structure is where the Kohanim and the Leviim would go ahead and stand guard. Good. The Gemara goes weiter. V'shilifnim hemenu hachel. And I will say, interestingly enough, or as she says, the Bach changes this to Pesach haya lo lechel. So we'll say, remember again, if you walked out of the Shar HaNitzotz, right? If you walked out of this particular gate, out of Mem Gimel, so I'm going to say, think about this. We saw this before. Remember, you walk out of the Shar HaNitzotz, where are you? You're in the Chel. What's the Chel? So remember again, the Chel, remember this brown dotted line, what do we call that? Remember again, that's the Soreg, right? That's the fence that enclosed the Beis HaMikdash, the brown line all around, it's the broken line all around. In between the fence and the actual structure of the Beis HaMikdash is an area called the Chel. An area called the Chel. It's an unconsecrated area right outside of the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara is just saying, if you were to go ahead and walk outside of the Shar HaNitzotz, ultimately, again, you would be by the Chel. So the Gemara says as follows: "V'shilifnim hemenu hachel sheni lo shar hakarban shlishi lo beis hamokad." So we'll say, if you keep going. If you keep going east, so again in Mem Beis you have what we call Shara Karban, and then you have, if you skip, then there also, as I mentioned before, there's more gates that are being mentioned. Mem Aleph is what's called Shar HaNoshim. We'll talk about that later. And then Mem, you have Shar HaMokad, or Beis HaMokad, Shar HaMokad. Now also remember again, we spoke about the Beis HaMokad. That's this chamber over here. That's the very large chamber with 4 smaller chambers that opens up into the middle of it. There was a fire that was burning in the middle. That's where the Kohanim went to warm themselves. So the Gemara says, V'tanya, Chamish Tevilos V'asara Kiddushin Tova Kohen Gadol U'makdish B'Aviyam. We'll say we're going to learn that over the course of Yom Kippur, this is really incredible. Over the course of Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol would go ahead and immerse himself 5 times in the mikvah, V'asara Kiddushin, and he would sanctify, which we're going to see means Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim 10 times. U'mekadesh B'Ayom V'kulan B'Kodesh Agag Beis HaParva. And I will say, interestingly enough, all of the consecrations, right, and all of the tevilos were done on the rooftop of the Beis HaParva, which I will say again goes back for just a second, is going to be Yud Ches. We'll say that's the beginning of this Gemara. We had this over here, right? By the Lishkas Avatinas. That's our rooftop mikvah. We're going to see we actually have a couple of rooftop mikvahs, but that's rooftop mikvah referring to. So everything the Kohen Gadol did, all of the immersions, took place over here in this cluster of Yud Tes, Yud Ches, or I should say Tesvav, Tesvav, Tezayin, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes. So the Gemara says as follows. Chutz mizu shaisa b'chol, with the exception of one tefillah which took place in an unconsecrated area, agabi shar hamayim, obitzad lishkaso haisa, and this other mikvah was by his chamber. So we'll say, you see over here that the Kohen Gadol had a chamber on the south side as well. So we'll say, this whole geography lesson on the Beis HaMikdash was just to reinforce the Gemara's point that there were 2 chambers which belonged to the Kohen Gadol. One on the south side and one on the north side. Now, I will say, here's what's interesting. The 2 clusters we are referring to are here, and here. So now we've got a chamber on the north side, a chamber on the south side. So the Gemara says, interestingly enough, V'lo Yedana, the Abba says, so now that we established that, what don't I know? V'lo Yedana, I ishkas parhedrin b'tzafon, v'lishkas beis avatinas b'daram, o lishkas beis avatinas b'tzafon, v'lishkas parhedrin b'daram. So I'll say, here's what we know. We know that the Kohen Gadol had 2 chambers. One, and we know their names. One was called Lishkas Parhedrin, one was called Lishkas Beis Avatinas. And I know what? One was in the north and one was in the south. What don't we know? Which one was in? So that's why I said it's a little bit anticlimactic. because again, we have, the final answer is reflected on this, but don't look at the key just yet. So now you know again, two chambers, one in the north, one in the south, one is Lishkas Parhedrin, one is Lishkas Avatinas. I just don't know which one is where. So Rabbi say this is incredible. Umistabra the Lishkas Parhedrin B'darim. Rabbi say, so listen to the Havamina of the Gemara. It must be that the Lishkas Parhedrin is in the south. Right? It must be that Lishkas Parhedrin Bosai is in this cluster over here. Right? This bottom cluster. Right? Just so you understand, we're looking at Tesvav, Teszayin, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches. It must be Lishkas Parhedrin is in this bottom one. Why would you say that? Bosai, listen to this. My timer. Maktim koi u'meisach zangel. This is really incredible. Because let's think about this for just a moment. The Kohen Gadol will wake up in the morning. So what's the first thing the Kohen Gadol does in the morning? He has to take care of his bodily needs. Right? So that's the first order of business. So he goes ahead, goes to the bathroom, v'tavil. And after going to the bathroom, he goes to the immersion in the mikvah. V'azil etzafon v'gamar chafina. So Rabbi says, now listen to this. Let's assume for a moment over here, the Lishkas Parhedrin is in this bottom cluster. Right? Let's assume that for a moment. So that makes sense. You wake up in the morning, and remember, you're going to both say, in circle Yud Ches, you have the mikvah on top of the base parva. So it makes sense. You wake up in the morning, first thing you do is you go to the mikvah. Okay. Then what happens next? Va'azil etzafon. Supposed to say, this is not about even Yom Kippur. This is talking about during these 7-day sequestering, the training process. Wake up in the morning, go to the mikvah, which is right on your rooftop. Then what? Rabbi say, now watch, trace the steps. Then go north, right? Travel to the north. Go to the top over here, where you'll go to, let's assume that Beis Avatinas is over here. Learn the Chafina, learn the Ketores. Okay. Then what happens? Va'asila Beis HaMikdash va'avid avoda kol Yoma. Then I'll say, where do you go from here? You go, let's see the front and the back. You go here. You go into the Beis HaMikdash to do your avoda. Fantastic. Then what happens? Va'avid avoda kol Yoma. Do your avoda the entire day. Lebahade panya. Now comes the evening. Madduale. They sprinkle upon him the waters of the Paraduma. V'hadir azil l'dalam v'tavil. So then Rabbi say, what happens after they sprinkle the paraduma? Remember again, Rabbi say, when you get sprinkled with the waters of the paraduma, what does that make you into? Right? Well, that makes you tameh, right? So what do you have to do now? You have to go back to the mikvah. No problem. Where's the mikvah? Go right back down here. And then Rabbi say, it makes sense, v'nayich. Now Rabbi say, then it makes sense if what? If after going to the mikvah, what does the Kohen Gadol do? Right? It's been a long day. He goes to sleep. So it makes sense if Lishkas Parhedrin is here. Because listen to this. You wake up in the morning, go to the mikvah, listen to the day. This is the 7 days sequestering. Start your day, then go north, get trained in the Ketores, then go to the Beis HaMikdash, go ahead and do your avodah for the day, then get sprinkled with the waters of the Paraduma, go back to the mikvah, and then go to sleep. And this is where your day ends. So mikvah, your day ends over here. Says the Gemara. Otherwise, the Gemara says, Di Amrit Lishkas Parhedrin Mitzafin. Because we'll say, listen to this. If you're going to tell me that Lishkas Parhedrin is here, Abosai, in the Tzafon, in the north, then look what the Kohen Gadol's days looks like. Then listen to this. So, Maktim Kayu Mesach Raglov, Va'azil Adalam V'tavil, the Gamar Chafina, Va'asila Beis HaMikdash. So we'll say, that means then, the Kohen Gadol wakes up. We'll say, now watch this. He wakes up. He relieves himself. Where does he go to the mikvah? Down here. Right? So he's going to go ahead now and take care of the Ketores. Right? So he wakes up, goes to the mikvah, does the Ketores here, goes to the Beis HaMikdash, gets sprinkled with the waters of the Paraduma, has to go back to the mikvah, and then what? Now has to go back to his lodging. The Gemara says that's a really circuitous route. Right? Why are you making him go all over the place? So the Gemara says, V'hadra azil l'darim v'tavil, uboy, because it said now, at the end of the day, he has to go back to the mikvah in the south, uboy mahadra mizil etzafur u'menach, and then he has to go back up north, right? He has to go back, up north, right? He has to go back to the base, top of the base to go to sleep. That doesn't make sense. Umi tarich machachina lei. L'daram v'tavil ubay mehadar mezel etzafur u'menach mitarach machachina lei kuli hai. So the Gemara says, are we going to make the... So we'll see, you hear what's happening over here? If you hold that Lishkas Parhedrin, ultimately, again, is in the south, the day is structured very seamlessly. Wake up, go to the mikvah, right? So mikvah is right next to where you say, wake up, go to the mikvah, go take care of the Ketores, go to the Beis HaMikdash, come out of the Beis HaMikdash, get sprinkled with waters of Paraduma, go back to the mikvah, go to sleep. If you say the Lishkas Parhedrin is in the north, then what happens? Wake up, go to the mikvah. Now it's true. Beis Avatinas is here, so you can do the Ketores here. Go to the Beis HaMikdash, right? Come out, get sprinkled, go to the mikvah, and go back up. It just seems so much more circuitous. To which the Gemara says, Alama lo machachin alei. Maybe, in fact, we want it to be circuitous. We'd like it to be a little bit more difficult for the Kohen Gadol. Why? So the Gemara says, the it seduki he who lifrosh. Rabbi say, this is incredible. Because if it becomes incredibly inconvenient, if he is a tzeduki, he will go ahead and give up on this. As Rabbi say, remember again, you see this chashash, this incredible concern that the Kohen Gadol may be a tzeduki. So the assumption is that the tzedukim are not as committed to their theology as we are to ours. So if the Kohen Gadol is a tzeduki and you're making him run all over the place, and literally Rabbi say he's going back and forth in the course of a day, the tzeduki is going to say, who needs this? Who needs this? But Rabbi say, ultimately, again, if he's not a tzduki and he's a true Jew, then ultimately, again, the tircha will not go ahead and cause him to jump ship, which Rabbi say is such an incredibly profound insight. How do you know if you're a truly committed Oved Hashem? What do you do? What do you do when things become a bit circuitous? Right? What do you do when things become a bit difficult or inconvenient? Do I give it up? Do I say too tired, too hard, too overwhelming, too inconvenient? Or do I stick with it? We'll say that is, see, to be an Oved Hashem when things are easy, so okay, anybody could do that. But when Yiddishkeit, when my day becomes a bit circuitous, overwhelming, and a bit taxing, so do I stick with it or do I give it up? That's the true litmus test of one's commitment. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. Inami, furthermore, shlo tazuach dai to alav. I will say furthermore again, you know how we make the Kohen Gadol run around a little bit? To keep him humble. Because I will say, if you're the Kohen Gadol, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, right? Remember again, you're sequestered 7 days, right? So everybody's waiting on you, right? The elder members of the Sanhedrin, ultimately again, the members of the Kahuna, everybody's committed to you. So in order to keep the Kohen Gadol a bit humble, what do? We have him run around a little bit. In other words, you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. In order to show you are a certain... See, I will say, what does that show? How does that keep a person humble? Because what does it show the Kohen Gadol? What does it show? You are a servant of the people. See, Rabbi saying, leaders, at least in Yiddishkeit, their greatness is not their own. Their greatness is by dint of the fact that they serve the klal. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu by the Chita Egel, right? Jews built the Egel. Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting on Har Sinai, conversing with the Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, Lech reid ki sheichei samcha. Get out of here. Get out of here, because at the end of the day, your nation has corrupted itself. And the Gemara says, how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu speak that way to Moshe Rabbeinu? What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Because Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness was only a function of the klal. If the klal divested itself of Kedusha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, what do I need you for? So the Kohen Gadol, he doesn't have independent greatness. His greatness is vis-a-vis the klal. So ultimately, again, to keep him humble, to show you're only here, or you're only great, because you serve, which Shabbos say, such an incredible yesod as well. Our personalistic greatness stems from what we are able to contribute to the klal. If I just live for myself, I could acquire some level of personalistic greatness, but I'll hit a ceiling. I'll be stunted. But if I live a life for the klal, I give to the klal, that's where my true personalistic greatness comes from. The Gemara goes back there. Inami tiskile bechada. So the Gemara says, furthermore, again, inami tiskei bechado. Ultimately, again, the Gemara says, furthermore, again, right? Look at Rashi. Inami afilu adam kasher utov anilatricha shlo tazuach taito alav leiskaos bekeser kahuna. Good. So the Gemara goes right there. V'amrle ishe kohen gadol. So also the Gemara says, kohen gadol. Yishi Kohen Gadol, you are, so remember again, the Gemara said, the Lashon of the Mishnah was, the Shluchei Beis Din say to the Kohen, we are the Shluchei Beis Din, and you are our Shaliach. So the Gemara says, this is incredible. Lema tevet yufti Rav Huna breid Rav Yoshua. Dam Rav Huna breid Rav Yoshua. Both say this would refute Rav Huna. What did Rav Huna say? Da Amar Rav Huna breid Rav Yoshua, Hani Kohani Shluchei Derachmana Ninu. The Kohanim, they are the agents of the Ribono Shalom. This is what Rav Huna said. So both say there's a machlokes. Who do the Kohanim work for? Are the Kohanim the representatives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the Klal? Or are they the representatives of the Klal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So Rabbi Yeshua holds that Kohanim are the representatives of the Ribono Shalom. Right? So the Gemara says, our Mishnah clearly disproves that fact. Because remember, I'm going to both say, what did the Ziknei Beis Din say to the Kohen Gadol? We are the agents of the Beis Din, and you are our agent. So clearly, again, they are depicting the role of the Kohen Gadol not as the agent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the Klal, but the agent of the Klal, ultimately to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Di Amr Shluchei Di Daninhu, because if you want to say that the Kohanim are our Shluchim, Amid Beis, perfect timing, good, we got Amid Beis, good, Mi'ika Midi, Da Anan Lo Matzina Lemei Avid. Ushluche didan matzu avdi. See, the say, Shlichos 101. What Shlichos 101? Your shliach could only do what? What you yourself can do. Right? The shaliach can be no stronger than the mishaleach. Right? Which makes sense. The agent cannot be, what's the name of the person who appoints the agent? Isn't there a name for that guy? Principal, thank you. Right? The agent could be no stronger than the principal. So the fact that the Kohen Gadol could do things that I can't do must indicate that what? So we'll say, so again, how could, what the Gemara is just bothered by, how could you say that the Kohen Gadol is our shaliach? He can't be our shaliach because he could do things that I can't do. To which the Gemara says, you're right. When they say you're our shaliach, what they mean is as follows. They say, what they're saying to him is, Kohen Gadol, when we adjure you, when we give you this oath based on our understanding of this oath. So that's what they mean when they say, we're the Shaliach of Beis Din. In other words, we are here to administer an oath to you. And the oath is that you will conduct yourself in conformance with halacha, not like a tzduki. And when we go ahead and we give you this oath, you take this oath based on our understanding of the oath, and not based on your understanding of the oath. Incredible. So we'll say after the oath, everybody cries. Right? The Kohen Gadol cries, the Ziknei Beis Din cry. Why is this so profound? Hu parishu bocha shechashdu tzduki. Kohen Gadol cries, why? He cries over the fact that they suspect him of being a tzduki. Right? He cries that they suspect him. Vehein parshu bochen, and they cry, they separate and cry, why? Dam Rabbi Shua ben Levi, as Rabbi say, they cry because the halacha is if you suspect innocent people of wrongdoing, ultimately again you are punished physically. So they cry that they have to suspect him, and he cries that they suspect him. The kol kach lama, and both say, so why do you have to do this whole process, right? Why do you have to make the Kohen Gadol take an oath that he's going to do the avodah on Yom Kippur in accordance with the way they teach him? Here we go. So we'll say very quickly, one of the fundamental dispute between what we call the tzdukim and the prushim. Right? The tzdukim were the people who rejected Torah Sheba'al Peh. The prushim accepted it. The fundamental machlokes when it comes to Yom Kippur is how do you do the avodah of the ketores? The tzedukim held that the way you do it is you place the ketores on the coals before you go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the smoke of the ketores. We know that is incorrect. Torah Sheba'al Peh teaches us that no, you only do the avodah of the ketores inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Kohen Gadol walks in with the fire pan of coals and with the ladle of ketores and puts them together in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That was the fundamental dispute. So Tan Rabban, Abbas, listen to this story. So Abbas say, it once happened that a tzedduki was Kohen Gadol. It happened. And mamish, this tzedduki corrupted the avodah of the ketores. He corrupted it. And Abbas say he put the ketores on the coals outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, outside of the Holy of Holies. And what happens? B'yitziyasa haya sameach simcha gidola. He comes, what's incredible about the story, Abbas say is what? He came out. Interesting enough, he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim alive, and he was incredibly happy. Why was he so happy? Because I will say he felt such an accomplishment. He had the ability, the opportunity to do the avodah as he thought it was supposed to be done. I will say what happens? Paga bo aviv. So he ran into his father. So Amar lo abni afa pi shetzdukin anu misyarin anu min aprushim. So I will say this is so profound. The father says to his son, calm down, stop being so overly joyous. Even though we're tzdukim, we have to be concerned about the prushim. So Rabbi say, listen to this. You know what the father was saying to his son? So Rabbi say, at the end of the day, the neshama knows what's right and knows what's wrong. So the son is all happy that we'll just take one more minute. The son was all happy that he got to do the avodah as he thought the avodah was supposed to be done. And his father, meanwhile, was saying, we hide behind contrived hashkafas all of the time, right? No one ever does anything wrong. I just create a new ideology. I just create a new ism. I just create a new hashkafa. And this new hashkafa allows me to do. So the son had his new hashkafa and he did what he wanted to do. He comes out and the father says, Ay vavai, you did it? You actually did it? I know we always said this is our hashkafa, but you actually now did it? You actually did this? So Amar Lo. So the son said, Kol Yoma Hayisi Mitzar Al Mikra Hazeh. All my life, we'll say, borrowing the phrase from Rabbi Akiva, all my life I was mitztayr. I had pain over this pasuk. Ki ba'anan era'el kapores. Because the pasuk says by the Ketores, with the cloud of the Ketores, I will come into the Kaporos to the Aron. Amarti masa yava liyadi va'akaimena. And I always wondered, when will I be able to fulfill the pasuk as we say it has to be fulfilled? Namely, placing the Ketores on the coals outside, going in to the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the cloud. So apparently the son was a bit more idealistic than the father. Right? The son was mamish tzeduki lishma. Right? He mamish believed in this. Amru lo hayu yamin mu'atin at shemes. It was only a couple of days that went by until the Kohen Gadol was dead. V'hutal ba'ashpa, his body was thrown into the garbage dump. V'hayu tola'in yotzei mechotmo, and there were worms coming out of his nose. V'yesh omrim, others say, b'yitziaso nigaf. Others say that right when he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he was killed. The Tani Rabbi Chia, kamin kol nishma ba'azara. When he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there was a sound that was heard in the courtyard. Sheba malach v'chavto al panav. A malach came through this Kohen Gadol down on his face. V'nichneso echav hakohanim. And upon hearing the noise, the other kohanim came in. Umatzo b'kaf regel egel ben ksefav. And they saw the shape of a hoof print on the back of this Kohen Gadol. Shene emar v'ragleihem regel yishara v'kaf rablein kekaf regel egel. So we'll say whatever this means, but the pasuk in Yechezkel says that the malachim have a rounded hoof like a calf. So the Kohen Gadol was all excited that he went ahead and he did the avodah like Kitstuki, and unfortunately, again, he met this tragic demise. Right? So we'll have to stop over here. Sorry, we didn't. Emir Hashem, we'll have Shabbos. We'll go through the rest of the daf. Incredible Gemara tomorrow. We'll say Shikoyach. Shabbos, we have a good Shabbos.